I skipped over one fight. And the reason is this. It's time for our fighter spotlight of the week, baby. And guess who it is? Guess who it is? She deserves it. She deserves it. She fought a great fight behind her Mexican crowd. She is half Mexican, half Canadian. She is Lupita Godínez. She is our fighter spotlight of the week, and deservedly so. Let's talk about her. Loopy Godínez trains at a Titan MMA. She's been training there since 2014. She also trains at a Lobo gym. She's been training there since 2021. Trains out of Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. That's right. She's half Canadian, half Mexican. Okay. She's a purple belt in BJJ. She aims to make a run at strawweight, baby. She's fought at both flyweight and strawweight in the UFC, so there's room for her to bounce either way. Either way. She's 31 years of age. She's born September 6th, 1993. She's 5'2", 61-inch reach, fights orthodox. She's 13-5 now, 1 KO, 2 subs. All right. Now let's talk a little bit about her early part of career and how Loopy came to be the fighter that she is. At the age of 14, Godínez's father, Carlos, was approached by the cartel who demanded protection money. Okay. They lived in a pretty bad area at the time, bullet-riddled cars, shattered windows. He was getting even phone calls of them saying his children's names, where they are at the time, stuff like that. Shit like that'll freak you out, right? Shit like that'll make you want to leave. That's exactly what Loopy's dad did. Took the whole family, lied to him, said they were going to Disneyland, took them all to Canada. He said, we're living here now. Fuck all that cartel shit. he said, we're not dealing with this. No, not my family. Okay. So what he does, as any great father would do, he takes his family and does as best as he can. He moves them into a motel, a hotel, whatever you want to call it. Okay. And basically they had to start from scratch. They lived there for 6 months, taking random jobs, washing cars, doing all types of odd jobs to pay the bills. And after they obviously made enough money, were stable enough, Loopy was encouraged by her boyfriend to get back into judo because previously, before she had moved and all this stuff, she was a martial artist. She liked to train judo. She was getting into BJJ, and her boyfriend convinced her now to get back into it. Okay. Now, at this time, she's been a dual citizen of Mexico and Canada. So, obviously she spent a lot of time in Canada, gets her dual citizenship. She's now a citizen of both Mexico and Canada. She also has 3 younger sisters, if you don't know, 2 of which, Carla and Anna, are accomplished wrestlers. So you can see why wrestling is such a big part of her game. But they're also wrestlers competing with the Canadian national team. So it just tells you how good they actually freaking are. The Godínezes are beasts at wrestling. Okay, so she started MMA as an amateur in 2016. Her debut match was June 18th, 2016, and it was against Ali Kramer. She won the fight via decision. In her following bouts, she lost to Jamie Lynn Horth, as you know, UFC vet Jamie Lynn Horth, on 2 different occasions, on November 25th of 2016 and February 18th of 2017. Now, despite 2 straight losses, she bounced back. She won her next 2 fights against Ashley Jarvis and Kyla Frajman. And then her winning streak was stopped again with losses to Tiffany Konama and Morgan Engelhart. Okay, she showed that she had her fight grit in her next 2 fights. She defeated Alexandria Lucia Delgado Lopez and Sam Hughes. Oh, look at that. Another UFC vet, Sam Hughes. She beat Sam Hughes, captured the Koga Strawweight Championship, and after that, she turned pro. Now she's a pro. June 30th, 2018, she makes her professional MMA debut. She faces Jenna McAllister. She wins by unanimous decision. She goes on to defeat Ashley Maston and Felicia Magellan in 2019. Then she captures the vacant BTC Strawweight Championship, defeating Lindsay Garbat at BTC 8 on November 30th of 2019. And in her next bout, her final bout before the UFC at LFA 94, Godínez captured her LFA Women's Strawweight Championship, defeating another UFC vet, Vanessa Demopoulos, via majority decision. So that's just a little quick insight to Loopy Godínez's career as she made it into the UFC. Okay. Now she gets her UFC debut, UFC on ESPN, Whitaker versus Gastelum, April 17th, 2021. She loses the bout, but It was a split decision, and it was to a very game opponent, former champ, challenger, Jessica Penne, former Invicta champ, Jessica Penne. So she loses to Jessica Penne in a split decision, unfortunately, but she learns a lot in that fight. She learns exactly what she needs to do and to win against opponents like that in the UFC, very game experienced opponents. So then she takes on Silvana Gomez Juarez. She wins the fight by armbar. This was on the undercard of Dern versus Rodriguez, October 9th of 2021. She wins in round one, gets herself a performance of the night bonus. Okay? Gets herself a performance of the night bonus. Fire. All right? And the reason she won this fight, it was supposed to be a rematch. She was supposed to face Sam Hughes, but Sam Hughes was pulled from the bout after testing positive for COVID-19. He's replaced by Silvana Gomez Juarez. Okay. So this was big. It was supposed to be a rematch. You know, she was probably feeling good because she'd already beaten Sam Hughes, and then her opponent falls out. She's probably feeling upset. She's facing somebody that's pretty good on the ground, and she ends up getting a sub herself. So basically, right after this fight, on a 1 week turnaround, Godínez, as a replacement for Sarge Eubanks, faced Luana Carolina on October 16th, 2021. This was UFC Fight Night Lad versus Dumont. She earned a record for the fastest turnaround in modern UFC history at just 7 days. She ended up losing the fight via unanimous decision, but for a female fighter, she got the quickest turnaround at 7 days. So that's just something to note about Loopy. She does have a UFC record. She does have a UFC record. Okay, so put some respect on my girl Loopy's name. You feel me? You feel me? All right, moving on. She faces Loma Lookbonmi at Vieira versus Tate, November 20th, 2021. That was her return to strawweight. That was a flyweight bout because Luana Carolina had to take the fight on short notice. Okay. I mean, because Loopy had to take the fight on short notice. She had to take it at a flyweight rather than her natural strawweight bout. So she returns to strawweight, faces Loma Lookbonmi, gets a unanimous decision win, then takes on Ariane Carnelossi at UFC 274, gets another unanimous decision win. That was May 7th, 2022 in Phoenix, Arizona. All right, then she takes a catchweight bout against Angela Hill. This is where she starts to hit her rough patches against UFC vets. This was also a catchweight bout at 120 pounds. Loses unanimously at August 13th, 2022 on the undercard of Vera versus Cruz. Goes back to strawweight, takes on Cynthia Calvillo, wins by split decision at UFC 287. Beats Emily Ducote by unanimous decision on the undercard of Dern versus Hill, a former opponent of hers. May 20th, 2023 in Las Vegas, another catchweight bout, her final catchweight bout of her career at 120 pounds. And then she takes on Elise Reed. She faces Elise Reed on September 16, 2023, UFC Fight Night 227. She wins the fight via rear naked choke, round 2. This is her second submission win of her career. This earned her another performance of the night bonus. Shout out to Loopy. This was her second one. Then she goes on to face Tabitha Ricci November 11, 2023 at UFC 295. She won by split decision and became the first woman to win 4 fights in the UFC in a calendar year. So Loopy holds 2 records. She holds the quickest turnaround at 7 days and the most wins by a female fighter in a calendar year at 4. So put some respect on Loopy Godínez's name, please. And thank you. After the Ricci fight, she ends up losing to Verna Jandiroba. As we know, Verna Jandiroba will be fighting on UFC 314 on the prelims of Alexander Volkanovski and Diego Lopez. She lost that fight unanimously. That was on the undercard of Blanchfield versus Fiorot, March 30th, 2024 in Atlantic City. Then she lost to Mackenzie Dern unanimously. Sandhagen versus Nurmagomedov, August 3rd of 2024 in Abu Dhabi. And then it brings us to Saturday night for Loopy Godínez. You might hear a car alarm in the background. I don't know whose fucking car that is. But she comes in at more than a minus 200 favorite against a very game opponent in Julia Polastri. And the Canadian gets the job done against the Brazilian. Uses her savvy, uses her cardio, lands more powerful strikes, gets on top, controls her for a majority of the round, threatens with a couple of chokes. Loopy Godínez looked fantastic. Swimming on top, transitioning seamlessly. She looked great. She looked absolutely great. She looked like she's ready to make a charge towards the top 10, top 5 of the strawweight division. She replaced an injured Yasmin Yarwegi on this card, by the way. That was the original fight against Julia Polastri. So this was a replacement fight for Godínez to make it even more impressive, by the way, at Elevation in Mexico City. Okay? Godínez wins by unanimous decision. Shout out to Loopy Godínez. You deserve this fighter spotlight of the week. The ladies showed out this weekend, arguably one of the most exciting fights of the night. So shout out to Loopy Godínez. She was my fighter spotlight of